So we will get the meeting started and welcome everyone to the Chips and Grits for November. Looking forward to things working out. Topic this morning is NASA wood turning. I thought that was a cute way to talk about things that occasionally occur by surprise for all of us. When you've got something going on the lathe and all of a sudden off it goes into the wild blue yonder. So,
Or the ceiling.
or the ceiling.
Mhm.
There are several memorial ceilings that get viewed from time to time. So we'll start with that. Who would like to start off? Something's going on with the phone. It always wants to take over who's talking. Let's
Well, I
see.
can start. I've actually talked about this at one of the club meetings. My own fault. I was coring, so I had the lathe set on the high torque, low speed, did the coring, and then started hollowing it, and it wasn't going fast enough. So I changed the belt and forgot to turn down the rheostat. So it was a large block, about 10 inches in diameter, partially, it was cored. So it was down to about an inch or so with a small crack in it. Turned on the lathe, and of course, it was at 3,000 RPM.
Oh my.
It broke in half. Half took off, shattering my funnel for my dust collector. The other half came and hit the side of my peak helmet, shearing off the one of the HEPA filters, bounced off my head, punched a triangular hole about like this in the ceiling, came down and ripped the shower curtain I've got suspended behind the lathe. I saw stars, and a good safety minute. Turn down the rheostat and wear your helmet. I still have the two pieces.
Yeah, speed's one of the key causes of what could make something happen. All of a sudden it goes a lot faster than what you thought and out of balance, and
Yep.
away they go.
Now much more diligent in turning the rheostat down.
Did you get the helmet fixed?
I'm sorry?
Did you get the helmet fixed?
Yes, I called Peak because it sheared off all the rivets, or most of the rivets on the inside. And so it was not, I was literally holding it together with tape. And they sent me the rivets. I put the rivets in, and I'm using it to this day.
Great.
Okay.
That situation occurred before. I think you all know about the hole in the ceiling at YEI.
Yeah.
I was involved in that one, and exactly the same thing happened. That was one of those, I don't know what they're called, exhibitions that we had at YEI where we had 4 or 5 lathes. And,
yeah, Woodio.
Yeah, the Woodio. And there were 3 or 4 people on a team, and it was Ed and me and Ed Jones and a couple others. And it was a classic situation of, no continuity. Everybody was trying to help out and everybody was doing stuff. And, we put a piece on there, and Ed hit the switch. And of course it was maximum speed, and it launched. Didn't hurt anybody, but it put a hole in the ceiling.
Yeah, I had a similar situation at his shop too, as I recall. he put a piece through his window blinds and into the ceiling as well.
Bruce, you're going to have to elaborate that a little bit.
Oh, at Ed Jones's shop, he was turning, I don't remember if he was doing a segmenting piece or what. But he was trying to do it, got just a slight bit of a catch.
That was one of those Oakman segment pieces that he worked that he was replaced.
Right. And boy, when they go, they go. So, the gluing is very, very tricky. The tool has to be extremely sharp. And if you try to take just a little too much,
They explode.
yep.
Who here has had one of those really holy pieces come off your lathe?
I don't know that I've had that. Nobody's had a piece with a hole in it come off the lathe?
Yeah. When it came off the lathe, it had all kinds of holes. No, I mean, I was hollowing the baby. My most recent one was doing the baby rattle. And I seem to always catch when I'm trying to hollow something and just quite haven't figured out how to stop that yet.
Well, if nobody else is gonna share, I have 2 times that something came off of my lathe while I was turning. One was early in my time owning this lathe, but I was still learning about how to hold things in the 4-jaw chuck, and I was turning a bowl. I didn't have the 4-jaw chuck tight enough, so consequently, when I was turning it well, I just made a big gouge into the side. I was almost finished with the outside, but it flew off of the lathe, a 4-jaw chuck, and bounced onto the lathe bed, and then up and hit the top of my face mask, and then the wall behind me, and then up on the ceiling, and then back down to the floor. So, safety wise, it's a good thing I had the mask on, face guard, whatever you want to call it. And at that time, I didn't have the Peaky safety device, but it was a huge gouge in it. So consequently, what I learned from that is occasionally go to the 4-jaw chuck when it's off, and of course, and tighten it down, check, make sure it's tight. So I learned from that. The other time was when I was using my vacuum chuck, and I had it was kind of stupid doing this, but the vacuum chuck, I had finished a bowl inside and out, and all I was left to do is turn the tenon off. And so I had the chuck running, and I was starting to turn the tenon off. Something happened. I don't remember. Maybe somebody come in or whatever. I needed to turn the whole thing off and stop for a minute. So I reached over and I turned the vacuum chuck off first. Uh, yeah, everybody that uses a vacuum chuck can tell you that you have to turn the lathe off first. 'Cause what happened? When I turned the vacuum off, it lost its suction and it just fell off. And as soon as I did it, as soon as it went off, I knew that I was in trouble, you know. But anyway, so I ended up with some scratches and little gouge things on the side of it. So I had to. Fortunately, there was enough of the tenon left on the bowl, and I could put it back on and turn that out. But I was so disappointed in myself because I was almost finished. I was so close. I was that close to just turning that tenon off, being finished with that bowl. So now I had to go back and uh, use my gouges again to reshape it, refinish everything. So it was a lesson. So what did I do to remedy that? I made a little tiny sign, that big, punched a hole in it, and I hang that on the switch. It says, "Turn the lathe off first!" Exclamation mark. So a little reminder to my feeble brain to turn the lathe off first. So that's what happened.
Okay, I'll share next. My problem has to do with jam chucks. Jam chucks are, I have rephrased them, and I've even trained some instructors to call them stupid jam chucks with me, because most of the time with a jam chuck, you're jamming it in, but there's no guarantee it fits right or that it's not going to slip. So that's my problem. So I just want to know, jam chucks are kind of the bane of my existence. I'll try anything before that. I love the vacuum chuck. So thanks, Bruce, for helping set that up. And I just want to point out to everyone that Jay put an article in the news on the website last month about what to do if your bowl drops on the floor, and everyone should go to that and look at that video, because maybe they'll get some tips. And that's all I have to say about it.
Who's next? Well, I'll share the one that I did. Was showing somebody how to turn a bowl, and it was coming along quite nicely, and decided, you know what? We got to take just a cut across the bottom of the bowl. So I proceeded to hand the bottoming tool that I have, and looked at it, and they went to put the tool into the bottom to make the cut. Just happened to catch the left flank of the tool, made a nice gouge. 6 pieces later, we picked it up off the floor. So always important not to take that little bit of a start with the wrong edge.
Some time ago, I ran into a fellow who had an interesting solution to dropping things. He had built a frame around his lathe, probably 6 by 6, and he never cleaned up. So he had a pile of chips, 2, 3, 4 inches high. And when you think about it, we've all dropped a tool. That's probably the best example I can think of. And obviously, we had to run back to the sharpener and occasionally start from scratch.
Yeah.
This guy, he had a solution to 2 problems. One is providing a cushion for stuff coming off the lathe or dropping, and secondly, he didn't have to clean up very often.
Well, I solved the drop tool problem. I've now got a mat, one of those foam mats, all the way around my lathe. So if anything falls off the lathe, it'll minimize the damage.
Gary, I thought you were going to say you had a magnetic vest.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's even better.
Yeah.
I had a situation where I had a small piece that I was using a glue block and I couldn't get it to stick until it kept flying around the room. Then I realized that the glue sticks were about a dozen years old, and replaced it with new glue sticks, and everything was fine. But there is a shelf life to those things.
I didn't know that.
Is that a hot glue stick, Jay?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
I didn't, yeah.
Well, I didn't either until this happens. The only thing I could conclude is that after about 10 or 12 years that they lost some of their adhesion properties.
Hmm.
Does it
soon-
tell you that? Does it
Well,
tell you that on the bag?
Didn't
you
say
buy it?
anything. Didn't say anything on the bag. But as soon as I replaced them with some newer Amazon special glue sticks, everything was fine.
Hey, Jay, did you learn what the shelf life is? How many years or what?
Less than a dozen.
No, I mean, how long is the shelf life? 2 years, 5?
I really don't know. I really
Okay.
don't know, but I know I bought these glue sticks from Surebond that are professional construction adhesive glue sticks. And I'll tell you, they are strong as you know what. It's really difficult to get them apart. So you really have to turn the block off of it.
Jay, I wanted to ask you, you may have touched on it there, for the older glue sticks you had, were those the same brand as the newer ones that you used, or could there have been a difference in brands in terms of adhesion?
Yeah, quite possibly, Ken, because the glue sticks that I had problems with were in an unmarked bag, which makes me think they came with the glue gun originally.
Straight from China.
Exactly. Exactly. Actually, probably could have used some white rice. That would have stuck better.
Particularly the sticky rice.
Sticky rice. There you go. Maybe that's what they make the sticky rice out of, these glue sticks.
I've got one that goes back a while, and Spence remembers this. Am I on? Oh, come on.
Yeah, Dick, we can hear and see you. You're fine.
We can hear you.
Okay. This has to do with a piece of wood coming apart in a way that I didn't expect, just because I just didn't know about it. And it was a piece of cherry that I was turning, and it had a cup shake in it. And when you have faults in the wood, most commonly you figure the radial shakes that come out from the center of the pith to the outside, and that's what people ordinarily will fill with turquoise or something else or glue them together. Yeah, but the radial shakes, I don't know.
Yeah, that
Radio
works.
shake is this one that goes and it follows the circumference of the rings around the wood, and instead of the other one coming in from the outside to the middle, there's just a fault that goes around the wood. And what that produced was the wood coming apart along that fault, and part of it hit me square in the middle of my face shield and bounced off. And I saved it. It's a real big piece of shrapnel that is like that. And you can see the radial part on on this side here where it came off. And that's a nasty piece of wood. And I was happy to be wearing my face shield. Um, and so I saved that little wedge of wood and I mounted it, uh, as you can see. And on the back of it, I wrote a very good day, 11/27/12, which was the day it happened. And it was a good day because I was wearing my face shield and I'm here to hold this little novelty item up instead of looking at you through only one eye. That's my story.
Dick, that would make a good safety demo or a safety word at the meeting, because I bet a lot of people aren't aware of those radial cracks.
Yeah, I could do that. I'll get a hold of Dan. Is he still the safety manager?
Yes,
Dan
he is
Hall?
for now.
Okay.
Well, for now, but
Jim's
you'll
going to
have
be
to
the next
tell,
one.
yeah, Bob Zimmerman, because he'll be doing the next one.
Yeah.
Dick, I think that would be a great idea to show the club.
And it's not really apparent that it doesn't open up. You don't look for them and you don't see them the way you do with the ones that come from the outside into the pith. Because this just looked like a good piece of wood. It just kind of came apart.
Sometimes you'll see those on the end grain, but you don't pay a lot of attention to it because you figure it's just another one of the whatever drying cracks, and you don't realize that it goes down into the woods a long distance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, everybody. I assume we're all sitting down. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
When you Google what's the lifespan of a glue stick, it comes up and it says it's typically 1 to 2 years if unopened and stored properly in a cool, dry place. Once open, its life is shorter and depends on storage, with performance decreasing over time as it can dry out or lose adhesiveness.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know I got glue sticks that are a lot older than 2 years old.
I think
We all do.
Yeah.
In fact, mine are ready to graduate from primary school, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I have some favorite sticks that were made by Stanley, and they're probably 3 or 4 or 5 years old, and they were super adhesion or advertised as such, and they definitely hold better than they used to hold better than regular ones. And I'm going to have to do a little test. I've been hoarding some because they don't make them anymore, that particular model number. So I've been hoarding the ones that I have. They're probably useless.
Well, that explains it. Thanks.
Boy, was that a good piece of information.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Jay. I never would have thought of that. I
Yeah.
thought they just
Yeah, me
lasted
neither.
forever.
You did us all a favor.
Yeah, that's good information.
I know the stuff I bought, Pure Bonder construction sticks, it's not cheap. They're about $2.25, $2.50 a stick, but they are advertised as super strength, and they are. They really are. I couldn't get a glue block off of a piece of wood. By heating it, it wouldn't come loose. I had to turn it off.
Well, maybe the stronger they are initially, the longer they'll last.
Not necessarily.
No, but yeah.
And they don't
Well,
come
that's
with a use by date either.
Yeah. I've never seen any.
Now, there was no use by date on the new sticks I bought either, so I have no idea when they were manufactured.
Yeah.
Well, it's a bummer for me because about 6 months ago, I bought a box of them, and it had, um, I don't know, it's a box this big. It has a bunch of them. I can't remember how many's in there, but it's a lot. So um, I may have wasted my money on it, depending on how long they actually work.
Yeah.
So
You may want to bring them to a meeting and try to wholesale some of them out.
But I tell you, I don't hoard them, but I bought them and I have a stack of them, not a lot, but a stack. But I didn't realize there was a use by date, and I'll tell you, I'm going to replace them.
Maybe we should have a contest to see who's got the most of them at home. Several of them are probably no good.
Contest you don't want to win.
Yeah.
Hey, Joel, turn your mic on. Visit.
No, you're still muted. Yeah. Put the glasses
Zoom
on.
message.
Get his glasses on now. We're in trouble.
There we
There you
go.
go. There you
Yeah,
go.
we got it. Finally found it. But what is the storage suggested for the glue sticks?
Well, it sounds like dry and cool.
Maybe
No,
sealed?
dries them out. Heat. Actually, what Bruce said, if they were kept, dry them out, and heat probably destroys them.
Yeah, I would guess low temperature in a cool, dry place.
Yeah.
Right. Cool, dry place.
Refrigerator?
Yeah, put them in the refrigerator. Yeah, put them in the refrigerator with your CA glue.
I can hear Mom now.
That's why I have a small refrigerator in my shop.
You mean from the street, Rick?
Boy, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Bruce,
But I guess
have a UFO story.
All right.
I don't know if it qualifies as NASA, but NASA would have been interested, I think. I was turning one of the 3-wing, 6-wing type things out of a cube, like the demonstration that we had. And this happened before that. I'm not sure how long ago, probably about 4 years ago. And I was turning my little object, and I decided it was myrtle wood, but it was pretty plain. And typically, when I turn the cubes on the skew or on the angle, like you do, I'm pretty careful about picking out the wood without too much grain pattern or too much squirrely grain, because you end up with a whole bunch of little tips that want to break off. So I'm turning away, and I get the whole thing on the exterior. I had the 6-wing look, and I had it pretty well done. And I thought, this is looking way too plain. I got to do something different. So I intended to hollow it. So and when you hollow the cube things, you don't have a lot to grip on the end, because you're basically gripping just off of one of the points of a cube. So get real cautious, or as I say, my pucker factor turns up, and I decided it needed some change. So I drilled 3 holes. I took it off the lathe and bored 3 holes on a flat side into the cube. I thought it would just give it a little bit of character. And then, in my infinite wisdom, I decided I drilled the hole in my infinite stupidity, and then I decided to start hollowing it. And so as I'm hollowing it, I'm just doing wonderful until I got to those holes. So now I have 3 clickety clickety clicks as I'm boring or hollowing the interior of this thing. And I thought, boy, how stupid. I should have hollowed it and then drilled the holes. Well, it caught and went flying. And typically, for anybody that's been in my shop, especially when I was turning, I do a real good, I'm just opposite of this story that Spence was just telling. My my shop floor stays as clean as I can keep it. And I hate standing on shavings or sawdust. So I'm constantly kicking the shavings aside, or I keep a dustpan right there and clean it all up. So I now have shavings from this work on the floor, quite unlike what I usually do. And now my flying object, which I have since named UFO, my flying object is laying in the sawdust, along with, I think there were 3 or 4 of the tips that had broken off. And so I'm on my hands and knees in the sawdust looking for all the pieces. And I finally just surrendered. I just took the thing, put it up on a shelf with the little pieces stuck inside, and I quit. And then, like a year or so later, the Phoenix Club president had a, whatever you call it, a monthly president's challenge. And he challenged the club to go look at their shelves where they had thrown things off the lathe and reconstruct one of them and bring it in to show. So I brought in I finished up, put my UFO back together. Actually, it wasn't named that yet. I named it UFO after that. And I put it back together and I took it to the president's challenge. And I may have shown this at the Prescott Club. I don't remember. But I'm going to flip my camera if I can figure out how to do it. And there he is. It's a piece of myrtle wood, and it is hollowed. And each one of these little holes has a plug. And I did not find all of the pieces, so on the bottom wing right there, if you can see a black tip, that little piece was the only thing that I didn't find. And instead of gluing the piece back in like I did a couple of the other tips, that ended up fill material. And luckily, it did not hit me. And I'm usually pretty careful with where I stand when I'm doing crazy stuff. And that's one I consider pretty crazy. That's it.
Nice reconstruction.
Nice looking piece, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon me?
Very nice looking piece. I'm glad you put it back together.
Yeah, it came out. It came out pretty good. I have 1 million hours in it, so I don't know that it was worth the effort, but I've done quite a few of those 3-wing and 6-wing pieces, and that one I was trying to accomplish something different. If you understand how that, if you remember your demonstration a few months ago, the bottom wing turns down, and I think you can see that in the picture. And then the upper wing, which is a third off from the bottom wing, if you follow the bottom curve right below the black dot, And if that were turned thin, then you'd have a top wing with the points like the bottom wing. But I decided in order to get leave more wood, so I'd have a bigger hollowing project or a bigger hollowing hole. I decided to turn it with this shape, which gives a similar curved shape, but it gives it on the top and the bottom, creating that flat spot. And this was my first try to do that, and I didn't realize how plain it looked with that big flat spot. So that's when I decided, when I put my engineering intelligence together with it, I decided to bore the holes in it to give it a little bit more character. And that was a huge mistake. And that's, I guess, as they say, that's how you learn. Boy, did I learn on that one.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, it's very unique. Looks like you've got a nice finish on it.
Actually, I don't even know what it is. It's probably just a spray lacquer. I'm sure it was, because basically I was getting pretty tired of this piece of art. But it was definitely a flying object, and NASA would have been real proud of it, because for any of you who've seen my turning room, it's not big, it's tiny. And it bounced off of a metal door that's just behind me. And I don't know if that's when it got hurt or when it hit the ground. And at that point, I probably wasn't paying a lot of attention to where it went. You know, for people that have problems like turning bowls or turning whatever, simple things, you see a lot of the professional turners talk about using, keeping your tailstock in place. And all the weird stuff that I do, it's absolutely important. It's very important to keep that tailstock in place. And one of the things that I have found, Nova makes a live center that you get, I don't know, 2 or 3 different pieces so that you can make a cup center or a cone center or a blunt flat end center on your bearing center. And I have made things out of nylon or Delrin that fit in that. So I turn a taper on the end of the nylon that sticks in the Nova center. And then I shape the other end based on several different things. But one that I use just a ton is visualize like a 3/4 inch or 5/8 inch dowel. And I put a chair cushion, like a thing you'd stick to the bottom of a wood chair if it was scratching your floor or whatever, and it's felt or some kind of a soft material, and it's sticky back so you can stick it on easy. And I just keep these, I just call them bumpers, but I put that in the live center. So I've got a live center, and then I run it up against the piece, and the felt keeps from marking the piece, and it holds it, and you don't really have to crank it up tight, because its job is to keep your piece of wood from coming like 1/4 inch out of your chuck. And if you just bump it up, you may, if you get a catch, it may, your piece may start wobbling, meaning you caught it and it's lost its grip in the chuck, but at least it cannot come off. So that's something some of you might give a try.
Yeah, I do the same thing with a piece of leather between I've got the same thing. I've got a chuck that's a live center that's got all kinds of inserts in it, and one of them is flat. And yeah, it really can make a big difference.
But the point, Gary, and that's exactly the same thing I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Except consider that piece. You probably have a Nova chuck also with that blunt point.
No, it's not a Nova. It's I forget what it is. It was one of the things I picked up at Craft Supply on their Super Wednesdays.
Easy wood.
Anyway, consider that same thing, same exact thing you're doing, except make it whatever, 4 inches, 6 inches, 8 inches long. I've got some that go up, I think, to 10 inches. And you insert it in the same live center, but it allows you, like in a bowl, for instance, you can go to the bottom of the bowl.
Yeah.
What else?
Bruce, I guess I can share ones with this group because I had something come off the lathe in public. So I had several interesting people watched as it came flying off the lathe. I was doing a demo down at the plaza for one of the mag sales, and I don't remember what I was turning, but I had finished turning one item and I put another block of wood on to do the same thing again. And again, I don't remember what I was doing, but it was spindle turning. And I've gotten in the habit of using the tailstock to help make sure that the block of wood is up tight against the chuck before I tighten the jaws down. So I will put it loosely on the lathe, bring the tailstock up, use the tailstock to make sure it's tight against the jaws. Then I tighten down the jaws. Well, it just so happened that day, I did that same operation with the exception of forgetting to tighten the jaws again. So I assumed it was tight. It was tight enough that it stayed there because whatever I was doing, I pulled the tailstock away so that it was no longer applying pressure, and turned on the lathe and started to cut, and it started flying off and rolled down onto the pavers. And I think one of the people watching picked it up for me. And so the lesson here is it's good to help register that piece with the tailstock, but make sure you actually tighten the jaws before you turn the machine on.
Tailstock is really helpful also if you turn in reverse. Even if the chuck starts to come off, you have that tailstock in place and it'll stop it from coming off all the way without having to use a set screw.
How do you turn in reverse with the tailstock connected?
It's not connected. It's just there enough so that if the chuck starts to come off of it, it'll hit that before it unscrews all the way.
So what
Get in there.
are you cutting or are you sanding? How do you get a gouge, for instance, if you're doing a bowl? How do you get a gouge to the backside of your bowl?
Stand on the opposite side of the lathe.
Well, you can do it that way too, but the advantage, I go in with the tool rest and I go in over top of that. There's enough to use a small tool rest you can get in. I've gotten in without any problems.
The other thing is there is an occasion where reverse turning works quite well, depending on the piece you've got. But occasionally there's a piece that's very difficult to turn in the forward direction, but a lot easier to turn in the reverse.
I do a lot of that, turning in reverse, and using gouge or or scrapers or whatever. But I've never figured out a way to get use out of the tailstock when I'm doing that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't either. But from a sanding standpoint, it works well.
You always feel a little uncomfortable when I have that thing turning in reverse.
Your pucker factor goes up.
A bit, yep, on the meter.
For good reason.
Well, I guess that takes, we were talking about ways to keep it. I think there's also, it could, like in my case, it's more than just a catch that came off, even though I've lost pieces due to catches. One of the things I do if I suspect a crack or something, I'll run tape off, or the fiber tape that, holds everything together so that it's less likely to come apart.
I know much.
Yeah, put masking tape on it first, and then put that fiber tape going in the opposite direction of travel. And then it can be quite effective to help keep pieces together so they don't come off the lathe.
You ever tape your wood to your chuck?
Yeah. Sometimes even the vacuum chuck. If I'm a little concerned about the vacuum, I'll tape it to the chuck.
I do that with the damn jam chucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kathy, that's something you can do in the next time you use it, a damn jam chuck.
No, it's a stupid jam chuck.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, I have used tape with them, and that doesn't always do it either. I've even used that green stretchy what is it called? Cellophane type stuff they use in moves from U-Haul. I've used that too to hold things in place because you can wrap it really well. But depending on the piece and the shape, it's still kind of stupid sometimes. So, but thanks for the offer of ideas.
Have you ever watched Kurt DeHeer do a jam chuck? Did you ever watch him do it?
He's done them with me, and he learned to say the word stupid in front of him.
I don't know how he does it, but he can get it to a point where he takes his bowl and goes tap, and it locks in place.
Yeah. Yeah, I made calabash bowls with him a couple times, and he just has that magic for getting it to lock in place. So, of course, getting it back off is a challenge too.
I was in a demo
what
once
was surprising with Kurt to hear is he wouldn't even measure anything or put the bowl up close to it. He eyeballed it and put it on, and first time, every time, he had it perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea how he was able to do that.
Really frustrating.
Yeah, lots of practice.
Yeah.
I was in a demo once with Mike Mahoney, and he turned a bowl and he's passing it through the audience, and they made a jam chuck for it. The bowl is like 3/4 of the way back through the room. He goes, "Somebody hold up that bowl for me." Oh yeah, I got it. And then he went and finished the jam chuck. The bowl came back and went popped right on.
Symposium.
What else did anybody have this morning? Well, I've got a clue for you. Chuck Brown was nice enough to forward on to me a YouTube, and it's not by a 14-year-old, it's by a guy that's got some experience. But if you go to the website, turnawoodbowl.com, he has a video that talks about what happens and stuff coming off the lathe. And he lists about 8 or 9 things. We've covered a lot of them, but some of the ones we haven't covered, he says sometimes it's the wood itself that's the problem. If you get very fine grain and thin layers in the wood, you can clamp and hold that tenon, and then all of a sudden it shears off. and you can get it because you tighten too tight on your chuck.
Oh,
If
yeah.
it's a dry, brittle wood, you could lead to something being sheared and taken off. Now, over tightening is another problem. And when you make your tenon, to do a proper tenon, you got to be just a little bit bigger than what the smallest closure dimension is. If you're bigger than that, now you've got 8 points digging into the tenon, and that has a tendency to create a stress riser, and then you can shear stuff off. He talked about some of the ways to avoid, shear. If you do have that type of a wood, when you cut for your tenon, put CA on the tenon, and then come back after it dries, clean it up, and then that gives you a little stronger bite on that tenon. Other than that, we've covered all the other points that he talked about in that video.
One additional point I'd like to point out is that I don't do it, but if you're turning wet wood, typically the tenon is really soft, and you can over squeeze it, you can under squeeze it. It's a challenge to keep a wet piece of wood solid.
I'd like to share something that happened again down at the plaza with other people, not me, but two other people doing demos down there. One of them had a piece on the lathe, and the jaws were very small jaws. I don't know what size she had on the lathe at the time, but it turned out for the diameter of the piece she was turning, the tenon was much too small in diameter, and she was turning it and it tore that tenon apart. And I learned from that there's a rule of thumb that your tenon diameter should be roughly 40% of your overall diameter. Turns out the same weekend and same demos with a different demonstrator, that one had a little bit larger tenon, but he had a very large, rough turning that was out of balance. And he was turning that, and the size and the out of balance tore his tenon off too. So you do have to pay attention to the diameter of your tenon relative to the diameter of the piece and relative to how off-centered your initial turnings are until you get it rounded. So keep that in mind with your turnings.
One of the things that we haven't talked about is mortises. That's where I have had things come off. I either didn't make my mortise deep enough, or the wood just wasn't strong enough to hold a mortise. I think a tenon, you have more meat to hold on to, and also kind of going back to what Ken's talking about. If you make it the wrong diameter, then you're looking at your mortise is only or your chuck is only touching your mortise in 4 spots. And that's putting such an uneven pressure on the wood that it can tend to split. I'm also very conscious of where the grain is and how the chuck goes into the mortise. I don't want to have the mortise spreading perpendicular to the grain. I try to make sure that 2 jaws are in line with the grain, and that way there's less of a chance of it coming apart. But that's the only time I've had things come off, is just my mortises weren't deep enough or the wood was too weak for it.
And another thing that enters into how well a mortise or a tenon work is the type of chuck that you're using. Many of us use the Vic Mark with the tapered grip. Some people use, I think One Way has a pretty straight jaw with a bird's beak type gripper kind of out on the end. And that, if that type, and there's several, I call them Chinese chucks that have copied that original one way, where it has that sharp beak around the end of the jaws. And basically that, whether you're doing a mortise or a tenon, those things tend to bite into the wood and basically give it a weak spot to start with. When you first tighten up the jaws, you've given the wood, you've basically started a crack or started a break, and given it an indentation that becomes the weak spot, and that's usually where they break. If you're conscious of that and understand that that's what's happening, and choose your wood accordingly, or choose the way you turn it accordingly, you can, they're a fine chuck, I guess. I have one and have used to use it a lot until I had so much trouble with them that I quit using it completely. And if you're paying attention when Kirk DeHeer is mounting something on the lathe, he makes it very clear and plain with your Vicmark chuck. The important part is the flat spot on your piece and the sharp corner at the bottom of your at the bottom of your cut where the jaws grip it. So that little V point down in the bottom and a flat surface for the face of the jaws is very important. And you get those off just a little bit, and you most likely will have problems. Another thing that I do, I see a lot of professionals doing this also. They reef on their, let's say it's a tenon, well, it doesn't matter, a tenon or a mortise. They mount their piece and then they reef on their chuck key and twist it just as tight as they can get it. And then they sometimes will rotate the chuck and twist it just as tight as they can possibly get it. And a lot of people have gone to the electrician's hex keys to tighten, for instance, the Vicmarks, so that they can tighten it up like a T handle and then use it as an L handle to get more leverage, because the handle sticks out 8-9 inches, and just crank the holy crap out of it. And basically you're digging into the wood, or you're pushing outward on the wood on a mortise. And if you put enough pressure on it, you can break it off without even turning the lathe on. And a habit that I have gotten into, I turn the chuck wrench. I've usually done, I believe Ken brought it up, to use the tailstock to make sure you're seating your piece on the lathe properly. And I'll bring the tailstock up with my right hand and my left hand, and I leave the chuck loose. I put the piece in the chuck and just bring it down to kind of making contact, but I don't tighten it. And then I use the tailstock to center it and set it, and then I tighten the chuck. And when I tighten the chuck, I use my left hand, which is my really off hand, and I'm not good using it for anything, but I tighten it very lightly, rotate it 180 degrees, tighten it, rotate it back to the original keyhole, and tighten it again. And each time I'm doing that with my wrist, I put very, very little pressure on it. And again, I use the tailstock whenever I can. And not only do you keep from throwing things off the lathe, you keep from breaking those tenons and breaking the mortise out. Most of if you look at the cracks, if you throw one off the lathe and you look at the cracks or the failure, it's pretty evident that pressure has started the crack in the first place. And a lot of that comes from when you put it on the lathe.
Good point. Anything else from somebody this morning? Well, I want you to know there'll be just a small change to chips and grits next year. The only thing that's going to change is the last name of the moderator. Bruce Peak is going to take over being moderator next year. And so I look forward to the things that he's going to bring to the party and hope to continue to see you all participating in the future, and wish you all a happy holidays from a chips and grits standpoint, but we'll see you all at the meeting Saturday and at the Christmas party. So with
Well,
that,
thank you for moderating this for the last 2 years, isn't it, Bruce?
3 years.
3 years.
Yes,
Has it
Bruce.
been that
Thank
long?
you very much.
Who's
Thank you very
counting?
much. I'm glad you took it over.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you've
Appreciate
really
it,
given it
Bruce.
structure and discipline, and you've really guided it very well, Bruce. We really appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Did I get my mic working right?
What office are you running for, Bruce?
I'm not.
Well, you have to. This is just your moderator is just a stepping stone to the presidency.
Could be. Who knows?
Did he look that silly to you? See you later, guys.
See ya.
Bye.